So, welcome to week 2 of Awakening Your Inner Child. And today we're going to be talking about reparenting, reparenting your inner child. So, first, before we do that, any reflections about last week? I know that's putting a lot of pressure on you, Dave, but no pressure. If
No,
you don't have
please.
anything to say, that's okay too.
Well, um, I'm not sure if all of these will be seen like in a continuity, but for anybody who was watching these in a continuity, for the coaching last week, I was actually not available. I was not around. Um, and I did the homework, but I don't think we're going to discuss the homework.
Yeah, we
Um,
can. We can. Any reflections?
okay.
This is all about that, so yeah, whatever you feel like bringing up from last week.
Um, I got some really good stuff done. I wrote a letter to my little Dave, as I call him,
Yes.
and I yes, so I did that also. I had a shamanic journey because I was at a shamanic journey in class, and we had to go find somebody who was experiencing negative energy and help them to transmute that negative energy through whatever process seemed proper. And I was right back in that trauma memory, like,
Mm,
oh, I know who's experiencing negative energy. I know exactly who's experiencing negative energy. And I have that as well.
okay, great. So any reflections you want to share, or do you feel comfortable? You don't have to.
No, 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 it's fine. In the from my heart to the Godhead and back, and everybody who hears this in between, if we are to tell this story, we're going to have to tell the story of my mom being a very difficult person to live with.
Hmm.
And I just need to make the statement that I have forgiven my mother. And her relationship, her friendship with me is one of the diamonds in the tiara of my consciousness that I am most proud of, that I have cultivated and built together, you know? And I feel really happy that she is a part of my life as much as she is. So if you're going to hear about the trauma that built the spiritual journey that led to the forgiveness that led to the greater and better understanding of life, we're going to hear about the parts that were ugly. And I'm sorry, like I can edit it out, but then you don't understand, you know?
No, of course, of course. And remember, this is all about whether we don't judge it, we just say this is what happened, and this is all
Mhm.
part of the healing. So yeah, I appreciate the disclaimer though, for sure.
Yeah. And there was a lot of anger for a long time. I'm just saying that if you're going to hear that, you should hear first that those fires have been put out, like, or really more redirected into spiritual pursuits that have blossomed into more interesting things and reduce the need for those angers in the first place anyway. Um, do you want to hear this letter that I wrote to myself or
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
uh, hmm, yes. Woohoo. Okay. So I do mention somebody that I have known recently, but I've edited their name out and just left a first letter.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. The prompt: write a letter to your inner child expressing love, understanding, and a commitment to healing. And you now have to understand that I do have a lot of emotional nerve damage. So this is the weirdness of my authentic self, not trying to pretend to be anybody.
Hmm.
What died? Your trust as someone who believed in things that up until just recently were immutable laws. Mom loves and supports us and cares about what we have to say. Nope. Now we are the orphan. We have to make plans or break rules for you to survive. You know what, little Dave? You put so much hope and so much faith in her, more than a vessel could ever bear, so fractured and compacted as she is within. Tell you what, kid, avoidance attachment sucks. There's a married woman known as R. who you will completely abandon after 6 months of friendship. You will throw her out. You will be exactly like your mother. And if you want to find out who you could have been if you had grown with safe and whole environments, brother, little brother, we've got. Wait, why can't I read my handwriting? That sucks. Oh yes, we've got sage talking animals in here. Everything is okay in here. We are shamanic Mahamayas now. Let's dance through the flames together, eh, little one? Let's break every single agreement if we want to, except for one. I am never going to leave you out in the cold again. If there is cold to face, let it be cold in good company. Like in the old days, like now, forever. And that was my little promise to little Dave. I didn't get to do the other journaling prompt, but I do have the
That's
shamanic journey. But that was my prompt. I was like, like I didn't want to be like, Dave, you can trust me. I'm full of snuggles. Little
yeah,
Dave was a sharp kid. He wasn't gonna believe in anybody ever again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And how did it feel to write that before, during, after any process in there?
What it felt like was the answer was there, and it was about if I was brave enough to stand with it. And I was like, okay, I didn't prepare a speech. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know how it's going to go. Just talk to him, you know?
Right, right.
And that's what we got. That's what happened. Is this little pep talk.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. And I love what you were saying, that affirmation of being there for him. We're going to be working on that today since today is reparenting. Of course, we could do
Yay.
weeks on reparenting, but so we're gonna fly through the reparenting. But
And
the
that's
good thing is for everybody who's watching this, playing the home game, this is on video, so you can replay. You can, if I'm going a little too quickly for the sake of time, please feel free to pause, rewind, and watch again. I don't think I need to tell anyone how videos work. But yeah, so forgive the 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 I should say speed, I guess, with which we're going to move through this. But there's a lot to go through. Unless you have any questions, we'll dive in.
I'm okay.
Okay. Beautiful.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Dave. And I again, I think this in particular, this class in particular will be meaningful for you based on what you were just sharing. So okay. So let's talk about what reparenting is. Before you start reading all this,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about a little bit about the what literally what is reparenting. What reparenting is giving the inner child the guidance it may not have had. So, in other words, the guidance you may not have had. So, one may say, how am I going to do that if I didn't have it in the first place? Well, these are some of the elements that you can be working with and focusing on as the adult. Okay. And as we move through this, and I'll probably say this a lot, it's there at the bottom of the image. Remember that your inner child is a child. You are the adult. So, whatever it is, and we're going to talk about self talk in a minute, but whatever the inner child may be barking at you, keep in mind that the person who is barking at you is a child who is afraid or non-trusting, as you were saying, Dave.
Mhm.
Right? So keep that in mind as we go through uh the reparenting steps and tools and the like. So just the basics of reparenting. These are the main elements that one needs when one is reparenting the inner child, starting with structure. So that's that reminder. The child is a
Mhm.
child. You are the one offering the structure. That means self-discipline, right? Self-discipline meaning and self-control, which is the last one. Knowing I'm being triggered in this moment. What should I do about it instead of being reactive? If you're reactive, that's letting the inner child take over. Creating boundaries is extremely important, and we're going to talk a little bit about those too, but the idea of taking care of yourself so that you can take care of your inner child, right? So it's like putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the child, right? It's that kind of thing. Okay. Second one is playfulness, and we're going to talk about this more in depth in week 3. But have fun with your inner child. This isn't all heavy, heavy psychological, psychospiritual work.
Mhm.
Part of what the child needs is to be a child and be okay with being a child. So, a great tip is when you feel like the inner child's voice is taking over, give them something to do that they love to do so that you, the grown up, can focus. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But that's a great idea. So, and you will learn, especially more in week 3, about what are some things that my inner child likes to do. And maybe you know off the top of your head already, and that's great. But we're going to elaborate more on those in week 3.
Okay.
You also need emotional regulation in order to help your inner child. So, and we talked a little bit about that with structure, recognizing your own triggers, being able to cope with your stress, right? What are those tools? And again, we're going to get some of those tools in a little while. And knowing how to self-soothe. Oh, I need to take a break. I need to take a breath. I need to go and eat something or have a nice cup of tea, or what can I do to nourish myself so that I can be there as a strong parent to this inner child? Make sense? And then finally, self-care. So part of self-care, I put compassion down, but I really also could put down non-judgment. Being non-judgmental with yourself, being able to understand that we are perfectly imperfect human beings,
Mhm.
and making sure that you are doing what you need for yourself, prioritizing your needs. I need this boundary, or I need to take a break. When at the bottom there, when it says taking holistic care of yourself, that means mind, body, and spirit, right? What are you doing for the adult version of yourself so that you can get your shit together enough to take care of your inner child, right? Does that make sense?
Truly.
Okay, good. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the phases of reparenting. Um, so, and we may even, if you stretch it a little bit, break it down. So this is a 4-week class, and we could look at each of these. They do apply for each of the weeks that we're working on. So week 1, we were basically working with the infancy stage. The beginning phase of trying to reparent your inner child is to establish connection, which is what we did last week. We did that meditation where you met with your inner child. During this infancy phase of reparenting, you need to take extra care and extra attention to pay extra attention to your inner child. They
Mhm.
are abandoned and untrusting and really hurt. So we approach with caution and care and do a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I would say that and phase of my life earlier of about a year of great panic attacks was my inner child demanding attention in a very direct way. So I agree.
Yeah,
I believe you.
absolutely. Absolutely. That 100% happens. And so you get that. So that means a lot of checking in. And what I mean by that is and you're going to have more tools by the end of this session to do that. But like checking in is saying, how is my child doing? And we can tell when the child, as you said, whether you have attacks, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, that is an indicator that the inner child is in need of your attention, right? So just check in. And sometimes you can just, when you're feeling fine, just check in throughout the day, you know, how you doing, honey? As needed. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we could say the next phase, of course, is childhood. So as you begin doing inner child work, your inner child will mature. Wow, pretty amazing, right? So that's what we want. Just like a real child, there are different um, ways that we parent them as they become more cognizant, as they become more safe and secure in the world. So during the childhood phase, and we might even call that this week 2, your communication will deepen.
Mm-hmm.
The reparenting tools can really come in. So remember, when they're an infant, we're not trying to parent a baby. We're trying to care for the baby. We're trying to make the baby feel secure. In childhood, you can start to parent, you can start to share. There's a lot more playfulness that can come in. And again, we will bring that in more specifically next week. Then when we look at the adolescent phase, so your inner child is now feeling safe, feeling playful, that it knows that it can lean on you. And what does that look like practically, right? So when we're talking about this in a realistic sense, it
Mm-hmm.
means that perhaps you're not getting as triggered as you used to. Perhaps your self-talk has gotten a little kinder. You're not as activated, right? So by the time we hit the adolescence phase and or week 3, when we get into the playful playing with your inner child, we're entering more of a relationship of consultation. In other words, the inner child may consult you, may say, or may speak directly to you. Like, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling, and you can collaborate with your inner child. What's going on? And I'm a huge proponent of talking to yourself out loud. Anyone who's done classes with me or worked with me individually, it is usually some homework for you to start practicing talking to yourself out loud. Because why? Because
And puppets.
listening. Yes, and puppets. Puppets are great. Yeah, you're gonna love next week. Um, so by listening to your own voice, it resonates, vibrates through your body. So when we do mantras, when we do kirtan, when we do anything, singing in general, one of the healing aspects of that is the vibration throughout the body. So by hearing your voice speaking kind words, it helps the nervous system calm down, and it also helps to lock in your mental state. This is how I am, or this is what I'm feeling in this moment. Okay. Also, in the inner child begins to develop and begins its integration into the capital S self. So we talked in week 1. Actually, I'll bring that up just so you can. I think this is the one. Yeah. So when we talk about the integrated self, that's this self. So not the ego self that's easily triggered, but the integrated self. So when we reach the adolescent stage, we're actually entering that more integrated capital S and small s self. And what happens as that, when we move into the adult phase, the final phase, and for our classes purposes, that's the keeping the love alive. How do I keep my relationship with my inner child healthy? We have even deeper consultation. When you're directly talking to your inner child and it is talking back to you, there's a maintenance of that loving relationship. You will have your inner child with you the rest of your life. Now, although I'm saying infancy to adulthood, we're not saying that the inner child is necessarily growing older. It's more of a maturity level. So that inner child becomes, and we talked about this in week 1 as well, it moves from whatever dysfunctional attachment to secure attachment. Okay. And yes, and by this final phase, your inner child is fused with the integrated self. It's able to you're able to tell, and it's able to tell. It probably won't get activated as much, but you're able to deal with it when it happens, and it happens to all of us. There's no point where we're not just being human beings. Sometimes we get activated, and that's okay. Any questions? before I move forward? Or comments? Any yeah,
It
but
sounds reasonable. Whereas figuring it out for myself has been climbing a sheer wet rock face. This is like, look, here's a path, here's an in, here's a path, here's an in, here's a path, here's an in. So I just the relief that I feel is my commentary.
okay, good, great. And like anything else, all of this is a practice, right?
Mm.
So these are as I said, it's like, oh, great. It's like, wouldn't it be great if we could just watch a video, look at a slide, and ting, it's done. Yay, I never have to worry about that again. It is a practice. So I want everyone to, again, with the non-judgment, don't judge yourself. It's like, oh, I just learned this and I fucked it up. No, it's not like that. So I know you know that. And anyone who has worked with me knows that it's a process, right? Okay. So let's look at
Ooh.
ways that you can reparent your inner child. So these are the tools. These are not all of the tools, but these are some basic ones that you'll find are the most effective. So I beg you not to read ahead and stick with me as we walk through them as succinctly as I can. Number one, with anything you are working on, is to have awareness. Be present and aware of your thoughts and feelings, that allows you to respond to them in a nurturing way. So when the inner child is whining at you, you're aware of it,
Mhm.
and you can then respond calmly instead of
Mhm.
letting it sweep you off your feet, which is what happens when we're not grounded.
Yeah.
And so once we have that awareness, we move to the inner dialogue and or outer dialogue if you're speaking out loud. But really what we're talking about is speaking to yourself with kindness and understanding. In shorthand, that's supportive self-talk. We're going to talk about that one in a moment. So we'll move on from this because we are going to spend a little more time on this today. Number three, using visualizations and encounters. We've done one in week 1. We've done one in week 2. We're going to do one in week 2. What this means is sitting with your child, imagining your adult self comforting and nurturing your inner child. Like if you close your mind, close your eyes, drop in, envision that scene like we did in week 1, where you're connecting with them, you're sitting next to them, you're holding their hand, you're giving them a hug, you're running on the beach together, whatever it is. These are really, really helpful to keep your inner child close and to have your inner child ultimately feel supported and loved by you. Okay, journaling. As I say this in every class, and of course in individual sessions, journaling is your best friend. Writing in your journal, recording your thoughts and feelings and experiences, that allows you to process and understand your emotions. It's great to talk out loud. It's great to talk to a therapist. It's great to talk in a group or in a class. Writing down your words, and you can choose to share them or not. It's up to you. And you don't have to share everything, and you don't have to feel pressure, right? Your journal is your best friend. It's going to be with you everywhere. And you can take it with you everywhere and turn to it and as a resource. And be honest, right? This isn't for publication. When we write in our journals, it's our true self. It's just us talking to ourselves.
Sure.
All right, moving across the bottom, loving boundaries. I didn't just say boundaries, mind you, loving boundaries. I will probably be pulling together a boundaries course, another boundaries course, revamped boundaries course that I think is extremely important for people to take because we don't understand boundaries very well. Or, people either think they're a great idea, but don't know how to create them or maintain them. But so for the sake of brevity here, what we want is to establish and maintain boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. Remember, you're the parent.
Mhm.
So honoring your needs means that you are being the grown-up for your inner child.
Mhm.
If you have an abusive family member or friend or boss, and you stand up to them and you say, you cannot speak to me that way, that's you protecting your inner child. Because if you are not the guardian at that gate, the child feels all the pain and takes on the burden. And again, in many cases, will have to be the parent, which they don't want to be, right? And they will feel unsafe. So your responsibility is to maintain loving boundaries that keep your inner child safe. Again, we talked about number 6 just a moment ago, self-care. Nourish yourself. Take care of the vessel and the spirit that lives in that vessel. Do your meditation, do your exercise, eat well, socialize if that's what you're into. Whatever that gives you joy is actually going to help you be a better parent. By the way, all of these 8 things could be given to parents for their actual children, right? All of these things are important. Even the visualization and encounters. Encounter a situation with your living child. How would you manage it? Okay. Creative expression. And this is going to be in week 3 that we're really going to focus on creative expression. Engaging in activities, whether it's art, music, dance, writing, whatever it is, that express and release any emotions that you may be holding on to. So important. That's important for you, but it's also important for the inner child. So in other words, this works both ways. You can do things that you love that are creative, and that helps you. But you can also give your inner child, a chance to engage in these activities. Perfect example is dance party. I've done this one many times, and it's so much fun. And you put on Bob Marley, that's what my favorite is. Put on Bob Marley, and I dance like myself, and then I let my inner child dance, right? So you're dancing as your child, and let your child move, and let where nobody's looking. And so like however old you want to be for that exercise, whether it's 8, 7, 3, 15, who cares, right? Let your child express. So that goes for the art and the music as well. If you play an instrument, I've sat down at the piano and played like I'm 7. I don't play piano, so don't anybody think I'm, I did study it, but never stuck. So just to play piano and just have fun with notes the way you would as a child, for example, drawing, painting, making puppets, whatever it is, doing that either as yourself for your inner child or letting your inner child do it for themselves through your body, right? Both of them are extremely helpful. And then finally, and this is on par with number 1, because these are equally important, is get yourself a support system, whether you have counseling individually or in a group, coaching, if you have family that you can trust and confide in and be connected to, friends, community. Find social events that interest your inner child. So, and that could be something like a street fair or a carnival or something, a toy shop, let's go to a toy shop and just fucking look around, or maybe we'll buy something, or maybe we won't. So take your inner child and work with them in that way. Any questions? Okay.
It's a beautiful curriculum. I'm into it.
Beautiful. Okay, good. So that all makes sense? The ways you can reparent. Okay, so just briefly, I want to go over self-talk. So let's go to because we were talking about that, how do we know when our inner child is acting up, and it's the way they talk to us. And this is the key concept behind self-talk. And this is where our self-talk comes from. So this is coming from a parental perspective, which is why I chose to put it here. But the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. The way that you were spoken to as a child becomes your inner voice.
Yeah.
So this is a way that we can look at supportive self-talk. Again, when we think of the parent here, we're talking about your highest self, or at the very least, your integrated self, the small s self and capital S self working together. So when your inner child is getting whiny and sad and upset, you're going to hear things like the small s self-talk. The
Hmm.
like, I'm not good at blah. You can rephrase that as I will learn how to. So if you're no good at painting, well, I will learn how to paint, or I will
I like
practice,
that.
right?
I
There's
like that.
something wrong with me, right? How often do we hear things like that? Instead of that bullshit, you can say, I'm unique. I'm different. I'm unique in all the world, and no one is going to tell me what's right or wrong about who I am. If there's something we want to change in ourselves, then we give ourselves the grace to do that. That's different. But to say that there's something fundamentally wrong with us is that's the wounded child who feels less than. So we can reverse that by saying, hey, you're a beautiful being. You're unique in all the world. Don't forget it. I'm going to fail. If I try to do that thing, I'm going to fail. We can correct that to failure will help me learn new pathways and make me stronger, not you stronger. So I put failure in quotes because there is no such thing as failing. Trying and not succeeding is not failing. The only time we fail is when we give up entirely. That's a failure. And I think that's really important for us. I mean, in therapy, I hear this all the time, this, I'm afraid to fail. And so it's really important to really think about, what does failure actually mean? That's what it means.
Mhm.
Here's the comparison trap. I'm not as accomplished or smart or pretty, whatever, as so-and-so.
Mm.
So important to remember, my life path is mine and others have theirs. That's it.
Yes.
Okay. Um, I am too this or not enough that. So like some physical trait, I'm too short, I'm too fat, or I'm too tall, or I'm or I'm not enough, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not handsome enough. Whatever that is, again, that's coming from the messaging you received as a child. So to reparent that phrase, we say, my physical being is the temple for my spirit, and I honor it. Whatever it is that we have going on, we still, our beautiful, unique selves, hold that precious spirit that doesn't exist anywhere else. How
Hmm.
important that role is for our physical body. And then finally, no one likes me, loves me, or understands me. Yeah, we've all felt that at some point, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, but at the same time, not true. Not true.
right, right. But how do
But
we
it feels
get,
it.
yeah, and it feels it because the inner child really does feel that way. So, um, so the way that we can fix that is to say, I am liked or loved in ways I might not even realize. So, for example, you you may have done something nice for a friend and they didn't seem really receptive to it, but you don't know
Hmm.
what was going on inside their body. They may have been filled with so many warm fuzzies they didn't know what to do with themselves, or they got embarrassed. So you have no idea what's going on with someone else. So you may not even realize how loved or liked you are. Um,
Hmm.
and in terms of not being understood, what matters is you say, I understand myself, the
Hmm.
core of who I am. We don't always understand every little nuance, but that's what we're working on. I am doing the best I can in this moment. So I'm on the path, I'm doing what I can in this moment, and that's enough. That's enough. Does that make sense?
It does. A comment that went through my mind as you were speaking was, if you were to fully understand yourself, you would also understand everything that exists in creation simultaneously. But
Okay.
shrug.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, well, it depends. Yeah, the self, right? What do we mean small s self, capital S self, right? Yes. I think if you understand the highest self, then yes, that's the everything. And there are moments that we still get to experience that. There are, you know, moments of solitude and silence
Mhm.
where we get to do that. Okay, so we're going to do a brief visualization. Uh, so let's do that. This is going to be very brief, and we'll just. So what I'm going to do is ask you to just get comfortable, close your
Mhm.
eyes, and just start to breathe comfortably. Nice, long, slow, and deep breaths. And just begin to pay attention to what's going on inside your body. You don't even have to clear your mind, but you can begin to just slowly pay attention to what's going on in your mind and uh, let it work its way out. Good. So what I'd like you to do as you just settle in is just imagine yourself now in a peaceful place, any place that you feel safe and comfortable, a favorite place. Good. And as you are enjoying the comfort of this place, be aware of your senses. Where are you? What's the temperature like? What can you smell or see? Bring yourself fully into that place. And as you do, imagine this younger version of yourself, whatever age is appropriate for you, standing very close to you. And if you need to crouch down, you can crouch down, but I'd like you to take a moment to see their eyes. Notice their face, all the details. Feel the essence of your inner child. Just feel what it's like to be in their presence. Be fully present with them. This is an important part, is to feel, whether it's through your heart or your solar plexus or wherever you feel that connection. Feel the connection between you. Make that real to you. And as you're looking at your inner child, begin to allow a sense of love and compassion welling up in you. Just begin to feel it well up in you. And as it is, what is motivating this feeling of connection is that you want to be and can be the loving parent figure that your child needs. So now sit down with each of them, with them, each of you sitting down, just wherever you are, just plop down comfortably. And if it feels like it's welcome from them, embrace them, pull them close. Or it may feel more appropriate to hold their hand if an embrace is too much, or just sitting close with love. But if you are physically touching your inner child in an embrace or holding their hand, I want you to take a moment to really Feel it. Feel their little hand. Feel their little arms around you. Feel their little shoulders in your arms, or feel their little fingers in your larger hand. Take a moment to really lock in that feeling. Now speak to the inner child. And you're going to offer these words of comfort and support. You can say them out loud, or you can say them silently to yourself. I understand you. Whatever you're feeling is okay. You are safe. I commit to caring for you from now on. I love you. And take a moment now to listen to what your inner child has to say. Encourage them to express any feelings or needs they have. Just take a moment to receive that. Don't fix anything, just listen. Just listen to what they care about. Good. Let them know in some way that you have heard them. You may nod, you may, again, give them another hug, whatever feels appropriate. Now, both of you can now see a symbol or an image that represents this loving parent-child connection. It could be an item in the room or in the space where you are. It could be a color or a sound, or even just the feel of that hug. But allow that symbol or image that represents the loving parent-child connection to come to you both. You both acknowledge it. And now both of you lock it in. This is your secret bond. You're going to hold on to this image as your anchor. So really bring it into view and hold it.
Mm.
Good. And now slowly return your attention to your breath, beginning to bring your awareness back to the present moment, feeling the floor underneath you or the chair underneath you. Feel the air on your skin. And as you come back, bring to mind your anchor. Before you open your eyes, bring it back right to the forefront of your mind. Allow it to carry the warmth and love you've cultivated in this brief visualization. And remember, you can always return to this loving parent-child connection whenever you need comfort and support, anytime. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Mm.
Okay. I would now normally give you a couple minutes to take some notes if you need to take some notes.
Very clear conversation happening in my head. No notes required.
Okay, so if people playing the home game want to pause and take some notes, I recommend doing that, and then you can start the video up again. Um, so what came up for you, Dave? If you feel like sharing, and you're under no obligation to share.
Um, I have to give a quasi gray answer. I would love to share if I remembered anything of what just went through my head. Um, and I'm not trying to be fussy about that. It's just that as a meditation practitioner, I'm familiar with a certain level of awareness where my body is so quiet and my mind is so listening that I get impressions from my mind, but I don't even like pull them apart and relate to them as my conscious self. They're just like, oh, colors, Oh,
Hmm.
here's some thoughts, here's some poetry, you know. It comes to me in very immediate, but once it's gone, it's like a leaf in the wind. It is just out of sight. Uh, I think I think my inner child received a lot of abuse, but not from me. And I think that's a very strong distinction I can point to. I there's no way to demonstrate this on camera. I usually have about 4 pounds of crystals and coins in my pockets. As an adult man, I have about 4 pounds of crystals and coins in my pockets. I do this because all of them have meditative objects in them, and this is how I sort of rifle through the card deck of my mind. But this is very also clearly an overture to my inner child. Like, I like this, you like this, we like crystals. Come on, So for all of the abuse that I took, and I don't want to say again, if people I love see this, it's been a long and beautiful time with many really good memories, but you don't get to have that and ignore what happened. Uh, my comment to that end. Um, I don't think I've ever really like I was very upset with my inner child during my anxiety attacks of 2022 where my brain was melting, but that was also as we've worked on, as we've discussed, a child demanding immediate attention in the only way it knows how, grabbing your leg and biting you. Now, do they actually want to in that way do that? Probably not, but there's no way to.
Yeah, yeah, they don't have the coping mechanisms that you have as a grown-up. Yeah.
Indeed. I don't know. Have I answered the question?
Well, just your experience of the visualization. So if um like for example, are you able to recall the anchor, the symbol that will bring you together?
Mm, yes, no, yes. Uh, I saw a dream thing that was doing this and
Hmm.
said, "Oh, good, that is the symbol between me and my little self."
Great.
And in the daylight, I'm going to draw, create, invent a symbol, put it on my wall, relate to it.
Beautiful.
All
Yep.
that will happen. The idea of what could be made is going to be the thing from which I make it.
Yes. Got it. Yep. Perfect. Yeah, so that's the important point about that visualization is not just the commitment that I will take care of you and what you're feeling is okay, but also some kind of a symbol or image that can lean on, yeah,
Mhm.
to remind you of that connection. Another thing that works in really well in that regard is the photo of yourself as a child, keeping that nearby, either in your wallet or on your desk or somewhere you would look at it. As I think I said wallet because someone I know just told me that they knew someone
Mhm.
who walks around with a photo of their inner child. It was a celebrity. Oh, it was Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins walks around with it as a picture of himself as a poor little kid, and he keeps it in his wallet and says, "I do this for you," which is, forgot who told me that. It's a great story. It
That is the best
it might
story.
have been Lorena. I don't know. I can't remember who told me. Yeah, it's great. Anyway, okay, so moving on.
Okay.
Any questions or thoughts or comments about reparenting at this point?
I have unexpectedly, unintentionally prepared for myself the proper thing to move forward in a productive way, and I noticed that, and I'm very excited about it. So, there's an art project called a Screamer, and it's this little ugly paper mache goblin, and of course it doesn't have to be ugly, and of course it doesn't have to be a goblin, and of course whatever, but it's this paper mache and wires and fabric with glue on it, and it turns into this little sculptural thing, whatever it turns out to be. And me and little Dave are like, we're gonna make a gremlin. We're
Great,
gonna make a gremlin, so
great. Well, you're jumping ahead. That'll be next week too. So you have time.
okay.
You have time. Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let's look at your homework invitation for this week, though.
Homework.
Um, and again, invitation. The homework is not required, but if you want to get the most out of this course, I highly encourage you to do these activities. So again, practice the self-soothing techniques we talked about. If you're feeling triggered or upset, bring your inner child in. That's the inner child who needs your attention. Ground yourself, do some deep breathing, use that supportive self-talk we talked about. As always, continue practicing self-compassion and non-judgment. No disclaimers, no need to say, oh, I'm just doing that, or I'm so stupid, I just have to do. No, you're awesome and you're wonderful, and just own it. Here is your journal prompt. Should you choose to write about it, write about the intentions and goals you have for your relationship with your inner child. In other words, how do you plan to reparent your inner child? In what practical ways will this relationship serve you? So having a relationship with your inner child, what is that literally going to look like in your life? It's like, well, maybe I'll be less activated when I'm, talking to strangers, or maybe I will feel, maybe I'll have less social anxiety, or I'll, whatever it is, only you know. And of course, don't forget the bonus weekly coaching call Friday at 1. This is also continuing your daily practice and really enjoying that, because that feels damn good. It really does. All right. So that's all she wrote for this week. Does any questions or thoughts or concerns about the homework or anything like that?
I think to begin was hardest, but now that there's a plan, it will all be all right.
To begin what? At the
The
beginning.
process.
Oh yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
process.
It's so hard. It's so
To
hard.
begin sucks, but
Yeah.
to actually have like, okay, here's a path, here you go, take it as you can. Now you're
Yes.
part of a thing that will carry you someplace safer. That is a
Exactly.
relief.
Exactly. I love that. Beautiful. That's a great way to end today's session. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you on Friday.